advised that in order for me to say the isti'adha before reciting in each rak'ah, I must have a proof for it, or don't do it. Is this correct?
Say the question again, please.
Initials A, B, Brooklyn, New York. Assalamu alaikum. I was advised that in order for me to say the isti'adha before reciting in each rak'ah, I must have a proof for it, or don't do it. Is this correct? And is there a proof for it?
Question is from Brooklyn with regards to a person being advised that if you don't have the necessary proof to make the isti'adha in every rak'ah, then you shouldn't do it. Is that correct? What's the proof of that, etc.? I feel they can go both ways. The proof of making the isti'adha obviously is established in the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, and when you wish to recite the Quran, فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ, seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the asl fil bab. That's the main dalil. When you recite the Quran, يعني إذا أردت أن تقرأ القرآن. Okay? And each rak'ah is recitation of the Quran. Now, did the Prophet ﷺ make the isti'adha in every single rak'ah before every single time he recited? That's a different story. So the generality is one thing, and the specifics of Sallu kama ra'aytumuni is a different thing. If it was me, I would say the correct view is to only make it in the first rak'ah, period. Only in the first rak'ah. Wallahu alam.
Initials A, B, Tangier, Morocco. Can you please clarify the dalils used on both sides about looking at the opposite gender with no lust? Is there ikhtilaf on when it will not lead to lust and fitna, or on looking at an old teacher wearing or not wearing clothes or hijab?
Type questions from Tangier, Morocco. And if I'm not mistaken, this brother or sister has been sending this question for like maybe the last 3 or 4 live streams. So we thank you for your patience and your perseverance. And we apologize for not having the ability to answer the question those times we went live. It just wasn't, we couldn't do it. All right? The proofs and the evidence is for or against looking at the opposite gender without a lustful intention, etc. Type. We have, first and foremost, Allah says, tell the believing men to lower قُلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. The basic translation or interpretation in English is to lower their gaze. But the word for word breakdown of it, مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. وَمِنْ هُنَا مِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَقُولُ أَنَّهَا تَبْعِيضِيَّة. Is the law saying lower your gaze from certain things. مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. And it isn't كل المؤمنين يغضوا أبصارهم مطلقا غضا مطلقا وإنما غضا مقيدا. Lower your gaze from some things. Min. So everything is not haram to look at, but certain things are. Everything is not makruh to look at, but certain things are. So before we get into the hadiths, the asl is this. وقل المؤمنات يغضضن من أبصارهن ويحفظن فروجهن. So the concept of the eyes being the gateway to the soul. Wallahu la yuhibbul fasad. And Allah does not love corruption. So looking at the opposite sex or the same sex, and it leads to corruption, and it leads to lust, and it leads, that's a mushkila. So if you look at the opposite sex for a need or for a reason, and it's not based off of lust, and it's done in a state in which there's no fitna, then the wisdom of it is no longer there, and it's permissible to look. So that's how the rationale is used. It goes back and forth like a pendulum. Okay? Looking at someone, the opposite sex, and you're lusting off of that woman. Imagining, taking off her clothes and thinking about what she looks like and having sexual experiences with her. Versus you're looking at the opposite sex because you're asking her where to go for directions, or she's a teacher, or the news, or whatever the case is. That's how it goes back and forth. So this asl, this main proof here, the main proof, the asl fil bab, is understood like that. And they say the illah of it being prohibited is fasad and fitna, infatuation. Clear on that? So therefore, a person makes the argument, well, how can a person look at the opposite sex and guarantee that they're not going to be infatuated with that person? How can you guarantee it? And how can you sit and stare in front of someone and the thought never ever cross your mind? So people, they say that it's just impossible and that it's going to happen. So you can't watch the news because you're going to watch the news anchor, the man or the woman, and stare at them, and eventually the thought will come to your mind. And others, they say, no, I don't have a lustful intention. I'm not looking at that person. I'm not staring there. I'm looking for information. Different story. I'm clear on this. At the end of the day, I don't think that the situation is that complicated. A person who's looking and staring, a person who's trying to get some beneficial information or some talking to a customer or something like this, staring at someone versus just looking at them and recognizing who they are and giving them some type of respect through eye contact. Is the difference in you staring and lusting over a person, man or woman. Okay? Al-Muhim is that whenever you're uncomfortable and whenever you feel that it's a fitna for you, then you should stay far away from it. Don't look at that person. Don't go near that person. And do not sit in that class. Don't watch that video online if you feel that it's a fitna for you. And someone who doesn't feel that it's a fitna for them and they do it with a purpose and a reason, you can't blame them for that. Okay? And of course, there are other ayats in the Quran. يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةُ الْأَعْيُنِ. Allah knows the cheating of the eyes and that which the breasts conceal. Alright? يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةُ الْأَعْيُنِ. Allah knows the khiyana of the eyes. وَمَا تُخْفِ الصُّدُورِ. And that which the breasts conceal and hide. And there are other ayats in the Quran as well that are used for that ruling. And many hadiths of the Prophet as well. اصرف بصرك, he said to Jarir, turn away, don't look. فإن لك الأولى وليس لك الثانية. And there are other hadiths as well in which the Prophet and the companions looked at the opposite sex. And they spoke to the opposite sex. And the opposite sex came to them and said things to them. Alright? So of course there's going to be a balance in this issue. Of course there's going to be a balance. What's important is not to go extreme on either of the two sides. Everything's okay to look at because I have a pure mind and a pure heart. No, that's wrong. You can't look at no one. You're walking down the street, someone covers up. She says, where's the masjid? She says, the masjid is over there. A woman walks into your store and you pass her the product like this. It's levels of balance and imbalance. Allahu A'lam. That's in brief. Obviously, that question is a lecture. Literally. Wallahu A'lam.
What's the ruling on car insurance when there's no real need?
Question is from our brother Anwar Ali from London. May Allah bless you, Akhi, and bless all of the brothers and sisters in London. What's the rule on car insurance if there's no need? Don't get it. Don't need it. If you don't need it, don't get it. Whether the insurance is haram or not. Why put yourself into further debt and to further financial obligation? Why support the beast of riba and insurance and these conglomerate corporations if you don't need it? It's just that simple. Wallahu A'lam.
Initials E N, Melbourne, Australia.
A very important rule, brothers and sisters, and that is, even if something is halal, if you don't need it, you shouldn't do it and you shouldn't take it if you don't need it.
Initials E N, Melbourne, Australia. Assalamu alaikum mufti. What advice would you give someone who doesn't make dua saying Allah knows my situation and what I need and what I want?
Questions from Melbourne. What advice do you give to someone who doesn't make dua and says Allah knows my situation and what I need and what I want, etc.? طيب. من رغب عن سنتي فليس مني. Can you worship Allah better than the Prophet? The Prophet says, أما إني أتقاكم لله أخشاكم لله. I have the most piety of Allah, the most fear of Allah. And the Messenger of Allah raised his arms until they saw his armpits. And سقط رداؤه, his garment fell off of his body, his torso. So the Prophet made dua. The Prophet called out to Allah. The Prophet begged Allah. And all of the prophets and the messengers, إنهم كانوا, they used to do what? يسارعون في الخيرات ويدعوننا رغبا ورهبا وكانوا لنا خاشعين. So the prophets and the messengers, they called upon Allah. They reached out to Allah. That was the way of all of the prophets and all of the messengers. Wallahu a'lam.
Initial AB, Tangier, Morocco. Is there a difference of thinking about someone gazing normally and now looking completely at the ground and about making few contact with the directing mouth?
I believe we explained it in the previous question. Wallahu a'lam.
Initial AN, Ottawa, Ontario. Is jinn catching to get rid of them allowed?
Questions from Ontario. Is jinn catching to get rid of them allowed? Like Ghostbuster, right? A vacuum cleaner. Bill Murray was the guy's name, the actor, Abu Saeed. And the mini wagon, right? Yeah. طيب. المهم. Slimer, right? Right? That was the name of the friendly ghost, the green one, right? طيب. At the end of the day, all of the jinn are not evil. All of them are not kuffar. Some of them are evil and some of them are kuffar. All of them don't go inside of humans and possess humans. Just some of them do. So we have to distinguish between the jinn. Just like different types of humans, there are different types of what? Jinn. Kunna tara'iqa qidada. The jinn have different levels, different madhabs. That's first and foremost. In brief. Secondly is, who is going to be doing the ghost busting? The jinn catching. Is that your job? Is that your profession? What's your status? What's your knowledge? And is there a need for that? Or do you catch the jinn, ghost bust, when there's a what? A situation, someone is actually possessed by a jinn. You sit them down with the proper qualifications and you what? Get rid of the jinn. Okay? Catching the jinn, rounding them up, tying them up, putting them in a genie bottle, etc. This can become problematic. It can become what? Problematic. Perhaps the ghost busting may help you understand the hadiths better.
And it shows AM Springfield, Virginia. Can we take Deer Park into the masjid? It has a picture on it.
Repeat the question, please.
And it shows AM Springfield, Virginia. Can we take Deer Park into the masjid? It has a picture.
Question from Springfield, Missouri,
Virginia.
Virginia. Can I take Deer Park water inside the masjid? It has an image on it. Just take Poland Spring or Fiji. Next question.
Ahmed S. Montreal, Canada. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. Are there any English-speaking scholars? If so, which have you benefited from? Allah bless.
Questions from Montreal. Are there any English-speaking scholars? If so, who have you benefited from? I believe we answered this question several times about scholars in the West. Tfaddal.
Initial A8, Singapore. What is the ruling on taking interest-based housing loan when one has no choice?
Questions from Singapore. The ruling on taking interest-based loans for housing when one has no choice. The scholars of Islam have mentioned that at the time of necessity and compulsion, there is nothing which is haram. There's no haram at the time of durura, when a person has no choice. But make sure that it's actually durura. Wallahu alam.
Initial AY, Singapore. What advice can you give to someone who wants to write Islamic children's books?
Questions from Singapore. What advice could you give to someone who wants to write Islamic children's book? Put your trust in Allah and make the books. There are hundreds of books out there, and there are other books that are needed. Alhamdulillah. Prophet stories, hadiths, fiqh, aqidah, akhlaq, sirah, tafsir, in your own language. Some books may have some weak things in them. Some books may be too long. Some books need to be summarized. Some books may have haram images, illustrations. Put your trust in Allah and write the books, but make sure you write the books with the proper knowledge. And make sure you write the books under the guidance and the supervision of someone who's knowledgeable. And make sure that you write the books as if your children are reading them. Wallahu alam.
Initially JT, Baltimore, Maryland. What is the benefit of saying Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam?
Questions from Baltimore. What are the benefits of saying Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, radiallahu anhu, rahimahullah, so on and so forth? First and foremost is you're implementing Allah's commandments. When Allah commands us to send Sallu alayhi, to make prayers upon the Prophet, Sallimu alayhi, to make taslim upon the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Okay, radiallahu anhum wa radu an. Allah is pleased with them and they are with him. Alright? And ruhama'u bainahum. The believers are merciful to each other. And from that is asking Allah to have mercy upon a dead Muslim. So it's a command of Allah and it's an encouragement of Allah. Secondly, it is a virtue. It's a virtue. It's a means of hasanat. You get a reward for saying Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay? And it's a manifestation of your love for the Sahaba and your love for the righteous Muslims who have passed away. Okay? Wallahu alam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tariq Abdul Wadud, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Does following a janazah mean following the body from the prayer to the burial spot, being there as the body, being there as the body, being there as the body as it's put into the car, following the car to the spot, or can we just meet up at the spot after the prayer?
Question is from, he said, Minneapolis. Does following the janazah and its virtue mean following from the place of prayer to the burial ground, or just mean it at the...
Following from the prayer to the burial ground, or following the body from the car to the... From...
Follow the procession, the funeral procession. Yeah, the closer, obviously, the better. If you can carry it yourself, alhamdulillah. If you're not in the hearse or in the car, you follow it. You follow the procession. And if you can't go in the line of the procession, it's too many cars, or you got lost, or you got cut off, try your best. Try your best to meet up there to get as close as you can, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Wallahu alam.
Sayyid Ali from the UK, is the division and characterization of knowledge a good innovation for Yah Hasana?
Questions from where again?
London, UK.
From London. Divisions and categorizing, divisioning off knowledge and breaking it down into parts, is it a bid'ah hasana? We have to understand something, brothers, is that bid'ah is bad when it comes to worship. When it comes to making up ibadah, actual service to Allah, then it's totally awful and there's nothing that's permissible of that. And there is no bid'ah hasana in ibadah. As far as worldly things, secular things, then it is the exact opposite. We are encouraged to make bid'ah. You're supposed to innovate things in the world of driving, of flying, of telling time, of technology. We're supposed to be the scientists and the explorers and those making patents and copyrights. Point number 3 is making bid'ah with regards to something that leads to ibadah, like the vessel. So in this hourglass, we have sand. It's white sand. For me to change the white sand that's supposed to remain white, and it's only supposed to be sand, I said, I want to put in there yellow sand or brown sand. Or I want to put small pieces of rice inside. That's even better than sand. Versus, I'm going to keep the white sand, but I'm going to replace the glass bulb with a plastic bulb. Plastic is cheaper. Plastic is tougher. It can last longer, etc. So me changing the contents of the sand is the bid'ah of ibadah, which is impermissible, prohibited. Kullu bid'atin dalala. Clear? Me changing the vessel, the outside of the bulb, is haram? No. It could be more efficient and better than the actual glass. Not saying glass is better than plastic or plastic is better. I'm trying to make a point. Point number 3 is breaking it down and categorizing it. Now, instead of 2 bulbs, we're going to have 3 bulbs because it allows the sand to flow more efficiently. And it breaks down half an hour into 3 points. 10, 10, 10. So the conditions of the salat were taught by the Prophet. The conditions of the salat are in the Quran. We're going to categorize them, number them, section them off. La bas. If you want to call it bid'ah hasana, tayyib. And if you don't want to call it bid'ah hasana, then it has nothing to do with ibadah. The point is that we have to understand something. And that is, the Salaf radiallahu anhum, there are many terminologies and wordings that they never ever used. And they never ever spoke about. And later scholars came later on and broke them down and categorized them. And they start using these terms, bid'ah hasana. Bid'ah is of 5 types. Bid'ah has 5 ahkam. Bid'ah wajiba. Bid'ah mustahabba. Bid'ah mubaha. Bid'ah ishada. There's no need to even use those terms. It's worldly. It's innovation. It's category taqsim. It's no bid'ah. Bid'ah is the ibadah. Period. All right. And if the question is coming from the UK, the advice that we give to many brothers there, they claim to follow the Salaf. But in actuality, they're actually just quoting scholars of the 5th century, which is not saying that's wrong. But in actuality, your claim is inaccurate because they'll refute someone. This person said this, you said that, and the first person to quote is Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Kathir, Uthaymeen. He could be right. The person could be wrong. But Ibn Taymiyyah min as-Salaf? No. Ibn Kathir from the Salaf? No, he's not. Ibn Uthaymeen from the Salaf? No, he's not. So in actuality, you may not, this issue here that you're trying to refute, you may not even have qawl lis-salaf aslan. Laysa lak fihi qawl. There's not even none of the Salaf said anything about it for you to say what was or what isn't their understanding. So be careful, brothers and sisters. Be mindful of this. Wallahu alam.
Initial JM, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Is it from the sunnah to make a certain dua for each body part during wudu, or is this a bid'ah? And if it's a bid'ah, how to advise someone who may believe it's sunnah?
What time is the adhan?
So then should have been
And the iqamah?
in 15 minutes.
You can make the adhan, someone, inshallah, if you don't mind. Well, this will be our, this will be our last question. Repeat the question, please.
This is JN, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Is it from the sunnah to make a certain dua for each body part during wudu, or just a bid'ah?
Question from Fort Wayne, Texas. Is it a bid'ah, Indiana? Excuse me. Is it a bid'ah to make a dua for every body part when you make wudu? Type. There are hadiths about this, but those hadiths are not authentic. They're inauthentic. Those hadiths are not sound regarding this. The neck, the hands, the face. Oh Allah, whiten my face. Oh Allah, protect my neck. Oh Allah, this. They're not authentic. So therefore, it should not be done. But if a person did it based off of what he or she was taught off of those narrations, then that's one thing. But it should not be done. And if a person continues to do them and there's no authentic text, it certainly could become or maybe a bid'ah. Allah surely knows best. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.